Woo! End of year. End of 2020.
End of. Do you kind of? I don't know if is it just me, but do you kind of miss 2020, Matt?
I'm nostalgic for it already.
It's like 2021 really hasn't done much for me yet this year. I kind of want to go back.
Yeah, we'll see.
Take me back.
Take me back. Stop.
Anyway, no, fuck that. But maybe some good music did come out in 2020, and that's what we're here to discuss.
Yeah. Did you feel like the music was reflective of the year in a way where it was kind of like disjointed and, I don't know, weird?
It was definitely weird in the fact that like no artist could play out and stuff, and weird. Like I was watching like some of the Tiny Desk stuff that I usually like watching was weird because it was all remote. And but what do you mean? What do you mean by like disjointed?
Maybe I'm just like thinking of like my listening experience where it's like, okay, I can't go to concerts, so like I feel like that weirdly had an impact on the music I was listening to. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, I like to go to rock concerts, so I don't have that, and so I'm just not as into it as much.
Okay, I can relate with that.
Yeah.
The not in. I think I got not into it as much just because I had the opportunity to basically constantly listen to music. Like I was working from home, we both were, and like I felt like I listened to music too much almost. Like it was just constantly on. And I eventually was like, I need to listen to some podcasts or some shit because I can't, like, I need to think about something else. Like, I need my brain to be filled with something that's not just music, you know?
Yeah. I found myself, like, watching, like, video game streams just instead of music sometimes while working from home.
Yeah. It's because it gets tiresome, like, doing the exact same thing every day, which was kind of like the MO for this year. So yeah, I definitely, whereas like before my music listening time was like, it was very like kind of a set schedule. The schedule kind of like blew up this year. And so it kind of made it strange. So I guess that would, for me, that's what's disjointed about it is that I had like too much time and I didn't know how to fill it essentially.
There was also a period of time where like studios were closed, so people weren't recording in studios, and I guess I don't know if that had any impact, but I just like knowing that maybe made me feel like it had an impact, but I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder how many albums were like home recorded this year.
I have no idea. I know of at least one that I'll bring up in my honorable mentions.
Okay.
But I don't know. And I guess that maybe made my list a little bit more front loaded, like towards the beginning of the year. And things kind of dropped off towards the end of the year.
Yeah, I think I noticed the same thing. My top 3 albums all came out March, April, and May. So
yeah,
maybe that means that these were all recorded pre-2020, and then everything that would have come out after May or whatever would have been post 2020 record sessions.
Yeah, that's super weird. I don't know. Anyways, we should do the beers real quick.
Let's talk about beers. This is the internet's best music and beer podcast. So do you remember maybe 3 years ago, we went to the Columbus Beer Fest. It was in the wintertime, and we had that one piney IPA from
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. I've been chasing that dragon since then. I've like been wanting that flavor in my mouth again. And we even bought that beer and it wasn't the same as what we like had that day. So I saw this at the store. It's from Wolf's Ridge Brewing, which is a local Columbus brewery, called Pack IPA, and it's the profile is what caught me. It says tropical pine resin. So I was like, maybe this is what I'm looking for. Maybe this will give me that hit that I've been so desperately needing for these past 4 years. And while it is good, it still is not quite hitting me the way that I would want it to. I would recommend it. It is quite citrusy and does have some pine resin hints to it. But still, I think I'm holding it to like the holy grail standard. So it's not quite doing it for me, unfortunately.
Still chasing that high.
Still chasing the high.
You know, I was very, very, very tempted this year to take like a long weekend trip to like Vermont or something.
And try to find the brewery, like a pilgrimage.
And I've done enough research on it. Like the Northeast area is very well known for some really great breweries, and so I really, really want to do it. But and it would be interesting to go kind of in the winter when it's probably snow covered. I think it'd be really pretty out there.
Have some beers by the fire and watch the snow.
Yeah, but trips this year are, difficult.
They ain't happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and it'd probably be solo if anything, which makes it less fun.
Well, keep it on your radar, and we'll do it. Once everything kind of calms down a bit.
Yeah, maybe next year we'd be able to do. What if we did a podcast trip?
Ooh,
recorded at the brewery. Maybe
brought it on the road, dude. That'd be sick, actually. Viewers, write in the comments. Make a poll. Should we do that? And even if you don't think we should, we're going to. So
I'll do a Twitter poll.
Twitter poll.
No one will respond.
Hey, somebody will. Yeah, I like that. That's a cool idea. Just both to just kind of have a vacation, but also like expand the podcast a bit. That'd be sick.
Yeah, I would like that.
Well, cool, dude. Well, excuse me. What are you drinking?
I have Rheingeist Truth, which we've talked about before, but I don't know if it's been the feature
beer. The beer of the podcast, yeah.
Rheingeist from Cincinnati that we've mentioned, and Truth is kind of their staple IPA. I think you can pretty much get it almost across the U.S. at this point.
Oh, can you really?
I don't know. I think you can find it in a lot of places. They've really expanded.
Yeah, at least most places are like in the immediate. At least most states in the immediate vicinity of Ohio. I feel like you can get it at. I've seen it for sure.
Yeah. And it's really good as far as IPAs go. It's just solid, and you're always going to get the same thing every time. Which is, the consistency is impressive. Like it's one aspect of brewing that gets overlooked. Because like we just talked about, we had that beer that when we tasted it the first time had this special taste, but then when we bought the bottle of it, it wasn't the same.
Yeah,
and it's tricky to really nail the same recipe over and over and make it right every time. But Truth is always good. It's always a good go-to beer.
Yeah,
pretty much any time of year.
That's interesting. You bring that up. That's something I haven't really thought about. Is how consistently good Truth is, and how it just tastes the same every time you open the can. And maybe for macro breweries like Bud Light and stuff, you expect it to taste the same. But yeah, with the microbreweries, they probably have a little bit harder time getting things clinically the same every single time, essentially.
For sure, it's a lot of work, and it's actually there's one guy who's owner of one of the he's selling like home brew kits and supplies in Columbus. Buckeye Brewcraft, I think it was called, and that's what he was like. The only nice thing I'll ever say about like a macro brewery like Bud Light is that they nail the consistency every time. You know exactly what you're gonna get.
Yeah, exactly.
And it actually is an achievement. But Good job, Ryan Geist.
Hats off to you. Well, cool. So does that conclude the our beer segment?
Yeah, close up the old beer.
Close up shop here. Okay. And so let's jump into the music here, Matt. I think we both got 3 of our favorite albums this year.
And we typically do this kind of like a countdown backward style. Like I give my third favorite, you give your third favorite, until we work down to our favorites of the year. The most
favorites of the year. Yeah. So why don't you kick us off this year, Matt? What was your third favorite album of the year?
My number 3 is one that is likely on your list, I think.
Okay.
We've done a podcast on it already, so I probably shouldn't talk too lengthy about it. And that is No Dream by Jeff Rosenstock.
Okay. Yeah.
And we said at the time, I listened to it a lot over the course of the year, and we said it at the time that this was a very prescient album where it felt like, even though it was all recorded before 2020, prior to 2020, it felt super extremely relevant in every single way. And while it wasn't my favorite of Jeff Rosenstock's solo album output, it's still like resounding in 2020 as a kind of pop punk album that emotionally captures the anxiety, fear, anger, all these kind of negative emotions of 2020, and still like has moments of hopefulness.
Yeah, and that's this is also on my list, but you guessed it. I don't want to say what order it's in though, so I don't want to give that away, but I do have some stuff written about it, and just what you're hinting on right there. Yeah, I think it totally has it has some humorous moments and some like energetic, some dance worthy moments. So it's not just all doom and gloom, thankfully, the whole time. So it does inject some of that. We'll get through this. We'll still dance through this. We'll still be okay, kind of thing.
Yeah, but overall, like, super well put together, and like I said, we did an entire podcast on it. So
yeah, so check out that podcast, folks, if you're at all interested in the pop punk musings of Mr. Jeff Rosenstock.
And I think it's been written about a lot too. On the top of a lot of lists that I saw this year.
Yeah, same. And I will say, one of my new favorite album closers of all time. I really love Ohio Turnpike. I think last time we talked about album closers, and I didn't include that one in there. But I think that is a great closer, and probably one of my favorite songs on the album.
Nice.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about that, Matt?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So I had a pretty hard time choosing my number 3. I went back and forth a lot, but I know this is kind of supposed to be like our favorites, and this was a favorite of mine, but I also think it might just be generally like an objectively good like one of the objectively best albums too. At least, and I've been seeing this also on some lists as well, but that's the album Miss Colombia by Lido Pimienta. I think I told you about this, Matt, when it came out back in April. I don't know if it clicked with you too much, or if you really liked it that much, but I like over listened to this thing. I really loved the kind of the poppy catchiness of it. It's a huge earworm kind of album. And it combines both like the modern sounds of Colombia and Latin pop, but also like the traditional and indigenous sounds of the country as well, and that's pretty interesting to me. It's kind of the opposite of No Dream. It makes me feel really happy just to have on. It's a very like upbeat and uplifting album, and even though I don't speak Spanish, you can tell it's like just the way the music is very energetic and very engaging, and kind of like you can throw it on and sort of you can clean or you can drive or you can just enjoy it, and it's just it's great for all occasions. And I couldn't not include it on the list because it honestly was one of my most listened to albums, just because of how infectious it is, and it kind of continues that the huge crossover popularity that like Latin American music is having in America right now. So, and I also like the title because it reminds me of Steve Harvey when he accidentally crowned Miss Colombia as the Miss Universe, but he was wrong, and that's sad to me. But I laugh. But yeah.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning this, and when I listened to it, it didn't strike me. But I should revisit it. I guess for me, it didn't have the same context as another album that is on my list.
Okay.
And so we'll talk about Latin music a little bit more later on in my list.
Yeah, you're definitely more well-versed and can talk about Latin music more than me. But for this one, just I couldn't, when I was just looking at everything I listened to, and I kept switching between my number 3, I just was like, I listened to this one more probably than any of my other choices for number 3. So that's why it ended up there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a great album, and if any listeners haven't checked it out, go check it out.
Very nice.
All right, number 2.
Number 2 for me is, and this was kind of a dark horse candidate. I only got into it very recently, even though it was released over the summer, and that is Impenetrable, Cerebral Fortress by Gulch.
Nice.
Which I turned you on to.
Yeah. No, I have. It's I have a little something to say about that one as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
So as I was perusing end of year lists, the album art jumped out to me immediately.
Yeah.
And Gulch is famous and well known for their album art, and this one especially is like scary, but also like looks like traditional.
Yeah, it's nice. It's
art.
Scary but also nice to look at. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's super fascinating. And the album itself, I think, is just like the perfect, for me personally, like the perfect hardcore album where it's just relentless, and it really is punk sped up. Like if you just cranked up if you just played everything faster.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
It is that, but it also, I feel like they kind of transcend that, and they have like just great melodies and just like passive, even though the songs are like all like a minute, like I can like remember passages within them like that are unique, and it's not just like the same few like chord progressions over and over again. There's like a technical brilliance to it as well.
There's great like guitar breakdowns.
Yeah.
The drumming is exceptional.
And the vocals are as well.
Yeah. The guy has like I don't know the front person's name, but his voice has like that great like yell, but it's also, I can also understand what he's saying as well, which is rare. For that kind of music.
That's funny. You're right. Yeah, it's like you can parse it out. It's not entirely unintelligible.
Yeah, it's super excellent. It's very short. It's only like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So if this is up your alley, it's super easy to try. Like you can listen to the whole thing right away. It's obviously music that isn't for everyone, but as far as this genre goes, I felt like this was just like the perfect record.
Exactly.
I haven't listened to it that much yet because I was turned on to it so late, but it's now already a staple in my like workout playlist.
I was just about to say the exact same thing. So since you turned me onto it, I think I've listened to their entire discography during each of my workouts, like because each album is like 15 minutes, so you can like listen to like they have like 4 albums or something on Spotify. You can listen to all of them in one workout session. So it's like that's been my go-to. But yeah, it's great for that.
It is. It's perfect for that.
Yeah. So
they
they
check that one out if you haven't.
Yeah, they were one of my 4 honorable mentions. So they definitely made my list. And yeah, I was super stoked that you turned me on to them because I was like, I didn't know I wanted that until you showed me that I did. So
Yeah, it's funny because me neither. I was like, I don't know, not looking for that kind of music, but I'm glad I found it.
Yeah. So my number 2 in kind of a similar vein, but came about much earlier in the year. So this album came out in March. It is the album Underneath by Code Orange. So this is another sort of like hardcore metal type album. But it's really hard to put it into a box. It's like glitchy, technical, genre bending, it's like got industrial sounds, hardcore, metalcore, electronic sounds, and also like some new metal, like some like Korn sounding stuff in there too, and like Linkin Park, which at first like I thought was gonna be kind of corny, or like turn me off a bit, but it's actually they like do it well. It's like been enough time that we can enjoy this again. but yeah, it's another kind of transcendent metalcore type album. Lots of really unique electronic samples, lots of unique and memorable breakdowns, and another like perfect album for your at home workouts or wherever you're working out, like super aggressive, and where Miss Colombia was kind of like my feel good happy emotion album, this one was like my raw aggression album probably of the year. And yeah, I think if anybody is at all interested in any of those kind of hardcore genres that I mentioned before, definitely check it out. It's super unique. I've never heard any metal subgenre type album sound like it before.
Does Korn make you nostalgic? Discuss in the comments.
Korn. I'm probably less nostalgic for Korn than I am for Linkin Park, but they're not. I wouldn't really put them in the same category, even though they're both sort of in the new metal vein. But
right.
But Korn is kind of funny to put on every once in a while.
Maybe that would be a interesting other topic. Or maybe not, I don't know. But it does seem like, even though Linkin Park was in that, like, kind of like rapping over rock music, metal stuff, for whatever reason, they escaped the like heavy criticism of all the other bands.
I think it's because they were talented at it. It wasn't like, and it came from, I don't know. It seemed insincere and stuff. It seems sincere. Like, I don't know, but yeah, Linkin.
I agree. But it's just, I still find it fascinating.
Yeah.
That even though all that music was so popular at the time, Linkin Park is pretty much the only one that people will say today, yeah, Linkin Park was good. It wasn't bad music. Yeah. It's just interesting.
Yeah, Yeah. I think people kind of like Slipknot as well. Like some of the early Slipknot stuff. Okay. I see people say like, that was actually pretty good.
Okay. I never did too much, so
yeah. But all right, Matt, you wanna hit us with your number 1?
Okay, I will. My number 1 is actually kind of like your Lido, Pimienta, Miss Colombia choice. It was my happy album of the year.
Yeah.
And that is YHLQMDLG by Bad Bunny.
Okay, nice. I thought you might choose this one when I was looking at everything that kind of came out this year.
It is by far my most listened to album of the year as well. And the album title is an acronym. It stands for Yo Hago Lo Que Me Da La Gana, which just means I do what I want, essentially.
Yeah.
And this album is just kind of like has that ethos the entire time of, it's just like good time party dance music. It was the album that I heard most blaring out of cars passing my Brooklyn apartment. And it's just good, like, fun time music. The thing that I really, I guess, am most sad about this year in music is that I never got to experience this album kind of out, like in the summer.
Yeah.
Because this is like a perfect like spring, summer album. I can hear it like not only at clubs, but just bars and like places where you're having fun with friends.
Yeah, like out on a patio or like at the beach or something.
Yeah. And so I guess it was kind of like an escapism album for me, where even though the weather is nice and I'm stuck in an apartment or in my parents' house, like shunted away from friends and like bars and, you know, socializing, it's still like I can still vividly imagine like having great times through this album.
Dude, that's very sad, but also like I'm glad you found that. Like,
I mean, it's not, I don't know, it's not all sad too. There's he's kind of like the Latin emo rapper sometimes. Some of his songs are kind of melancholic. Overall it's a really great album. It's just not silly fun.
He's an interesting cat. Like we could do a whole podcast just about like what he represents as far as like Latin like machismo and the what like where Latin music is in America right now and stuff like that. Yeah,
I feel like even the song like Bichial is, you could do an entire podcast just on that song, and I don't feel qualified.
I don't know if you could, but I don't know if it'd be good.
More just like reading other perspectives of like Puerto Ricans and trying to figure out what it means from that perspective. But I mean, just like ignorantly, like just enjoying that song without thinking about it. It's just a fun song that's like memorable and I want to sing along. There's other reggaeton songs on here that I just want to like chill, and they're so catchy. And I really love this album all the way through. If you haven't checked it out, it's YHLQMDLG.
I've listened to some of the singles from it, but I have not yet sat down to listen to the whole thing, so I definitely will after this.
That's my numero uno.
Nice. And my numero uno kind of the kind of got revealed already, but it was No Dream by Jeff Rosenstock. And I had such a hard time just numbering these, honestly, and I think No Dream came to number one because I think it just really encapsulated just how I felt this year overall, and I don't know if we really need to say anything more than what was already said in our other podcast and then earlier when we talked about it for your number three, but I think for various reasons it rose the ranks to just what I thought was my favorite album of the year, and I will just leave it at that. So number one, No Dream, Jeff Rosenstock.
Well put. And Jeff has like made our list pretty much
every year. Yeah, I think he's just a shoo-in at this point. Like, he's definitely one of my favorite artists ever. And I would love to see him play this album live someday. It would be like cathartic to like be at a venue again and hear him playing this like song, which encapsulates 2020 and kind of like in something that is the opposite of 2020. So looking forward to that, Jeff. Please tour again once everything is safe. And
it would be a pretty surreal moment.
Yeah. And I hope you're doing okay. I've seen that he's been releasing some music on Bandcamp and stuff. I think I get emails occasionally that are like, new song is out, and so I haven't
checked out those singles yet, but
neither have I. But yeah, he's still plugging away. So next, honorable mentions. Shall we run through these?
Yeah, I could just run through mine real I'll do it quick. I promise.
Yeah. Okay, I'll time you.
Likewise by Francis Quinlan. I don't know if that made your honorable mention.
It was my first honorable mention. I do have some stuff to say about that, but keep going.
Okay. Next, Ecstasy was a short EP by Disclosure that came out in the beginning of the year, but it's super fun and was one of an EP that made me interested in electronic music again and kind of house and dance.
Nice.
One album that I enjoyed that also made the top of a lot of lists I saw was St. Cloud by Waxahatchee, which is like it's just a very well put together kind of folk album, and not like a cheesy Mumford and Sons like, hey, stomp clap.
Thankfully, I think that has died.
Yeah, thank God. I was never a fan of that. But that was a really good one. Another one that might be in your honorable mentions, The New Abnormal by The Strokes. Quick shout out to one of my favorite rap albums of the year, Pray for Paris by Westside Gunn, which just straight up feels like it's from the mid-90s. And it's very cool that it, like, you could literally put it next to like a Tupac or Biggie album, and it just sounds like exact same in every way. It's interesting. Bad Bunny released 3 albums this year, and one of them, Las Que No Iban a Salir, was like just the leftovers from some of his other albums, but I thought it was actually really good. And Stay Alive by Laura Jane Grace. I don't know if you listened to that one.
Oh no, I didn't even know that she released an album this year.
Yeah, it's a solo album, and it's mostly, I think it's all just acoustic guitar and
nice.
Her voice. But it's super sweet and beautiful. It's simple, I think, just like recorded at home or, minimal production. But as always, like, just her voice alone with a guitar is enough. And always lyrically, it's interesting and attention grabbing. So yeah, definitely check that one out.
Most definitely.
So that was it. That was my honorable mention.
Okay, cool. I had 4, but I just came up with a 5th one that I forgot. But yeah, 2 of them were on your list, so I'll just start. Likewise by Francis Quinlan. I also had that on mine. When the album first came out earlier in this year, it didn't quite speak to me a ton. I think I listened to it a few times and was like, oh, that was all right, and didn't really give much more thought to it or listen to it again. But since it's been like winter, I've I was like, oh, maybe I'll pick that back up again. And it's kind of the album has seen like new life in this different context, essentially, of like a more quiet, lonely sort of a winter time. And I've been really enjoying like the lyricism of it and the more stripped down nature of it, which was my major criticism when it first came out, was like, it's almost too stripped down. But I think in this kind of current wintry time context, I like it more. So that was a great one for me these days. Next,
and very unique.
Yeah,
songwriting and composition.
Yeah, there's like just like never hardly ever like a chorus and like vocal melodies that are just like wild and all over the place. And yeah, it's
kind of
inflections to words, and like the emphasis on certain syllables are like all is like so unique. Yeah, and just very Francis. So,
and lyrically, like there's no real narrative. It kind of like picks up in bits and pieces.
Yeah,
like, and it's not exactly clear what the story is, but it's always fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. So I think for anybody who likes singer-songwriter type stuff, that's a great one. Next was 2017 to 2019 by Against All Logic. I think it's just another great house music album by Nicholas Jar, also known as Against All Logic. It would have been higher up. Like, this was one I vacillated between for my number 3. But there are some songs on there that I just don't love. And as an entire package, like I feel like for best album, it needs to be an entire package essentially. So it's doesn't quite reach the heights of what was it, 2010 to 2016 or 2015 or whatever his last album was called, which is like one of my favorite house albums. But I still think it's great and definitely worth a listen. Next was the New Abnormal, which was also a contender for number 3 by The Strokes. Definitely a return to form for the band. Great performance. Some like interesting low-key, non-bombastic type songs that I don't feel like usually make it into The Strokes albums. Like the song At the Door is the one that came to mind first. I did listen to it a ton when it came out, and I really, some of the songs on there I think are some of the Strokes' best just ever in their entire discography. So definitely a great one, but similar to Against All Logic, I don't think it's an entirely complete package for me to say it's my 3rd favorite album of the year. We already talked about Impenetrable Cerebral Fortress by Gulch, and then my last one. And this could have squeaked out, but I wanted to say it anyway. But Down in the Weeds, Where the World Once Was by Bright Eyes. We did get a new Bright Eyes album this year, and being the Bright Eyes stan that I am, I felt like it would be wrong of me not to include them here. It's just like a lot of the other ones on my honorable mention. It was a handful of really great songs and a handful of kind of mediocre ones that were ones that I was just meh on or just were okay. So not my favorite Bright Eyes, but I will never complain about getting more Bright Eyes music to listen to. Conor Oberst, one of my favorite musicians of all time, and one of my biggest influences. So I will almost always put him on my list. So that was it.
I tried to listen to the Bright Eyes album briefly, but it just, I don't know. It was, I didn't get it. I don't know.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
It's now daunting. They have like a fairly large discography, and I don't know exactly where to start and try to get into them, but I need to. It's on my to-do list. It's 2021 resolution.
Yeah.
To try.
We'll talk about that. We can talk about that later. But they do have a pretty big discography, and I think, I don't know, I probably have some differing opinions from like the normal recommendation, but I think their most famous is I'm Wide Awake, It's Morning, which has like their biggest like hits, and is probably the most poppy of the albums. It is great, but that's for another day. Yeah,
I have heard you mention that one before.
Yeah.
And the Strokes comeback was super interesting. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
But as far as like all-time music comebacks, it's got to be up there, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people were kind of like, I think, laughing at not even laughing at the Strokes, but just kind of had like given up on the Strokes essentially as a band that could exist in the year 2020, like, or past the year 2006. You know. Right.
I was honestly like, is it just like the greatest straight up music comeback ever? It's like, has any other band fallen so out of popularity? And
man, that's a great
comeback with an album that was like pretty much universally enjoyed.
Oh man, that's a great topic for the next freeform jam session that we do. Yeah. I'm trying to think.
I can think of a lot of failed comebacks.
Yeah, contrived comebacks. I don't know, man. Radiohead never really needed to come back, but I feel like there's
like Bob Dylan has always been great.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
I can
great.
think of bands or musicians that were always great, bands and musicians that fell out of favor and just never came back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. Well,
I've got a great one. Kid Cudi. He had a great comeback this year too, but it was kind of late into the year.
Yeah. Oh, that didn't make my honorable mentions, but Man on the Moon 3 was really good.
Yeah, it was really good. I wouldn't include it in my honorable mentions either, but I did quite enjoy it for like the week that it came out. But yeah, people were clowning on Kid Cudi quite a bit after Speeding Bullet to Hell or whatever it was called.
There were some real lows.
Definitely. But yeah, so anything else you want to talk about for honorable mentions before we get into the last segment?
No.
Okay, so the next one will be our not like music that didn't come out in 2020, but we may have discovered this year or really loved this year. And for me, it was almost obvious, and this was quite funny in my in the Spotify Wrapped thing that it does at the end of every year. It said I was in this band's top 0.5% of listeners. So like,
okay.
I definitely listened to this a shitload, and that is the band Deaf Heaven and basically their entire discography. Very similar to like Underneath and Impenetrable, Cerebral Fortress. This was more just like aggressive, abrasive music that I embraced this year. And it's almost like if I could come up with a band that speaks to everything that I love in like my hardcore music or just music in general, they've got hardcore, they've got post rock, they've got shoegaze, they've got black metal, and it's all one band. And I'm like, those are all the things that I love the most. And so for whatever, it's like this band exists solely for my taste, essentially. So I love them, and I love their entire discography, and I listened to them a shitload this year, enough to be their number one fan.
I'm your number one fan. Nice.
Mm-hmm. I'll just kill off my list. The rest are pretty small.
Okay.
Next was so I've been taking guitar lessons and getting into listening to jazz more, and one of the most famous jazz guitarists of all time is Wes Montgomery, and I think his two albums, Incredible Jazz Guitar as well as Smokin' at the Half Note, are just great jazz guitar pieces, and just great jazz introductions for anybody who's interested in maybe listening to more jazz, or just kind of want some like jazz background music. It's all great, and he's a virtuoso of his craft, and I've really loved exploring him as well as other jazz guitarists and just jazz music in general. And lastly, I was late to the train, but Kendrick Lamar's "To Pimp a Butterfly." I know this one got 10 out of 10s when it came out, like album of the decade, nods for the 2010s, but for whatever reason it never really clicked with me until I had a shitload of time just to sit down and really invest time into listening to it, and I get it now. And I also agree, quite possibly one of the best albums of the 2010s. I think there's not a fault within it, not a crack. Super musically advanced and interesting, socially conscious, a lot of great messages and things to digest. And Kendrick obviously is just is another virtuoso of his craft, his flow, his ability to change up his flow, rap over like any type beat, change his voice. It's incredible. I used to think that I'm blanking. His first album, or what came before this one?
Good Kid, Mad
City. Good Kid, Mad City was. I was like, how could you think Good Kid, Mad City was a lesser album than To Pimp a Butterfly? But not that I think it's a lesser album, but I think To Pimp a Butterfly is just like is just something is just special in its own way, and I finally understood. So those were my 3 other favorites from this year that I listened to.
Very nice. You also listened to some Brazilian music, like I did, I think, this year.
Just a bit, but probably not as. I probably couldn't name who the artists were or anything, but I was around Brazilian music this year. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It feels like a very, very long time ago. But I really got into Brazilian music, especially Brazilian funk. And so a lot of the music I was into was not necessarily released this year. It's a little bit older, but kind of dove into that entire genre. And I guess it was kind of like end of 2019, but I wanted to include it because it feels like it was part of early 2020 a lot. I went back, and I mentioned this on one of our podcasts that I was listening to old Trance. I don't have a specific artist to name, but yeah, I was like in a weird like throwback trance fixation. But some artists specifically I got into Northstar, which I think I showed you and you liked, is kind of in the same vein as Taking Back Sunday.
Yeah, no, I definitely, was that the one where I was like, where'd you find these guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, I like that album too.
It's like this emo band and was making music around the same time that Taking Back Sunday was, and went on some tours with like Motion City Soundtrack and was at a Warped tour, but never was as popular as some of the other top emo bands at that time. But I really, really love their work. They have some great albums, and I'm kind of shocked that, especially considering that was so the popular genre at the time for my demographics. Specifically, the album that I enjoy the most is This Thing Loaded. But yeah, it's super interesting. I also got into a little bit of the Misfits. I don't know if you ever listened to them.
Yeah, I had a Misfits phase a bit, like maybe around 2012. So. Okay.
Yeah. They had completely, like, I had just missed them entirely, which is interesting. But it's kind of cool to listen back at like the horror core.
Yeah, they're like the OGs.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Lillingtons, which I've mentioned multiple times.
They're on I listened to them. Yeah, on your recommendation a few times this year for sure too.
And lastly, I feel like I kind of rediscovered Choking Victim.
Nice. I need to rediscover Choking Victim as well.
Yeah, I listened to them before. I think we talked about it in the context that we heard them. But it was awesome to go back into their discography and listen again. Yeah. And for whatever reason, I was really into it this year.
Nice. Yeah, I need to. That's a good reminder. I should go back and listen to some more Choking Victim.
Also good workout music.
Oh, for sure.
We need more of that. But that's all I got.
All right, cool, man. Well, we're very good at hitting like that 50-minute mark, like naturally. Yeah. That's our
we're pros.
That's our podcast superpower. Yeah. Where's our sponsor? Where's our man? Like, I am Manscaped. I know you guys like to. What's the other one? The website one that everybody has. Squarespace. Where's our Squarespace sponsorship? Hold on.
Yeah. There's a Blue Apron or something.
Yeah, BarkBox. Come on. Or Loot Crate.
Find like defunct old companies.
Yeah, I think Loot Crate is the perfect one.
Perfect.
All right, dude. Well, I hope all you listeners check out these albums, and may 2021 bless us with live shows and more music and life.
Yes.
Bless.
Bless up.
Bless God. Lil B, bless us, okay?
All right.
All right.
FTMB over and out.
Over and out.